Welcome to Jesus Christ Prison Ministry and another video Bible study. Our topic, Matthew, the Campaign, Part 1. Continuing in Matthew, we find the preliminary work of Jesus to be finished. Up to this point in Matthew, Jesus was quiet, largely unknown, keeping away from major cities, towns, and highways. Little by little, the knowledge of Jesus was being spread by word of mouth. It had been approximately 33 years since Zechariah had been told by the angel that his wife would give birth to the forerunner of the Messiah. This information spread to all their neighbors and throughout the hill country of Judea, so that all these things were being discussed. Luke 1:65. It had been approximately 31 years since the angels gave news of the birth of Jesus to the shepherds. It had been approximately 30 years since the Magi came from the east asking, "Where is the one who was born King of the Jews?" Even though the news and gossip of the Messiah had been making the rounds of Israel, it was low-key since the rulers of the church refused to acknowledge these rumors. The people looked to the church instead of to the truth. Also, keep in mind, Jesus was not the only one attracting attention as the Messiah. It is very important to understand that everyone was looking for the Messiah to come. According to prophecy, he was to appear at any time now. Therefore, like today, people were running around claiming to be the Messiah, or "I am a prophet of the Messiah," and gathering around them followers. Today, we call them church. This we understand by the speech Gamaliel made before the Jewish council. For in the recent past, Theudas appeared, claiming that he was important, and about 400 men joined him. He was killed, and all his followers were dispersed and disappeared. After that man, at the time of the census, Judas the Galilean appeared and got people to follow him. He too died, and all his followers were scattered. Acts 5:36-37. Therefore, just because someone was claiming to be important, or the Messiah, or gathering a crowd of followers, did not mean he was the Messiah. People were waiting, watching, and listening. Throughout history, whenever Jesus was about to work mightily, the devil begins a false work to keep the eyes of the people away from the true work. Therefore, when Jesus started his ministry, it was low-key. Little by little, a miracle here and a miracle there over time and space. Most miracles were for those who searched him out. Most miracles up to this point were done in pagan territory. Yes, he cleansed the temple at the beginning of his mission, but then he left for pagan territory. Jesus had not yet publicly pronounced his mission. Because of this, the church leaders would not be pushed into acting against Jesus so quickly as to hinder his work. But at the same time, his work was making the gossip rounds imperceptibly. People were taking notice. Now it was time to jumpstart the action. It was time for the people to go from talking to doing. There was no more time left to be quietly laying the groundwork. According to the prophecy of Daniel 7, Jesus only had 2.5 years left to finish his mission, having laid his preliminary groundwork. Now Jesus must announce to the world who he is and what his mission is all about. While the church believed its mission to be of a dictatorial nature, church laws, routines, services, rituals, and membership, Jesus came to show the true nature of God's church. His campaign was about to begin. Just prior to this, Jesus stated, "The harvest is vast, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." Matthew 9:37-38. Now, the Lord of harvest is about to answer his prayer. Keep in mind, Jesus must always wait on his Father. We also must learn to wait on our Father, not the church. Then Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority over unclean spirits so that they could drive them out and heal every disease and every illness. While the church was using its authority over its members to keep them in line, it was also using its authority to drive away the undesirables. Jesus, on the other hand, was accepting them, healing them, and including them into his family. Jesus wanted the world to see the difference between what man devised and what God devised. He called the 12 and commissioned them with authority to drive out wicked spirits and heal every disease and illness. That is the mission of God. He is a God of love. He did not commission them to get degrees, an education, or to join the church. He did not commission them to argue with the church or set up debate teams. They were not to go to church or set up a church. They were to go house to house. It was plain for all to see that the disciples were not able or capable of doing this work on their own. The glory and praise went not to a church, not to the disciples, but to Jesus and his Father. No doctors got the glory. No health institutions got the glory. No church got the glory. No educational institution got the glory. It was obvious that God was now making himself manifest in the presence of man, and it had nothing to do with church. This, of course, enraged the church leaders and church members who loved their church. As I look back over the years of this ministry, how like the commissioning of the disciples. It has no glory or praise of men. It is plain and simple with no degrees or education. It is obvious to those who wish to see that God is now making himself manifest to the world in preparation for the final campaign of the loud cry and the repeat of the three angels' messages. The message that God is giving today is unlike any message he has given in the past 6,000 years. The message he gave in the 1840s fizzled out because the people settled down and became like the world. They followed the example of the Israelites who came out of Egypt. They also fizzled out by refusing to do the work required of them and had to spend 40 more years in wandering in the desert. Jesus could have come, but had to delay on account of the church. This time is different because the times are different. Each era in God's work had a message specifically for that time. This last and final message is to prepare 144,000 people to live for 7 months from the close of probation to the coming of Christ without sinning. Everyone else alive at the close of probation will be destroyed eternally. At no time in the past, since the fall of Adam, has man had to prepare for this. Our churches today are so full of ego, pride, and arrogance that everything done must be done for their glory, to bring them honor and money. They put on stop smoking seminars and bring glory to the church and our message. They conduct vegetarian cooking classes and bring more glory to the church and our message. But none of it brings glory to Jesus. None of it promotes his message to live the sinless, perfect, and commandment-keeping life. It only promotes church, and the people continue in sin. People come to the health message today not to please God and make their body temples more obedient to God, but to satisfy a long and healthy, selfish life. More atheists are becoming vegetarian than Christians are. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector. James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus. Simon, the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed Jesus. These were the 12 whom Jesus sent out after he had given them these instructions. Don't turn onto the road that leads to the Gentiles, and don't enter Samaritan towns. Instead, go to the lost sheep of the nation of Israel. Jesus did not choose any of the media megastars or church leaders or church teachers as his disciples. They were too busy with church. After all, they earned their living from the church and had to promote it to keep up their lifestyle. Another interesting point is the fact that Jesus accepted Judas into his inner circle. He knew that Judas would betray him. He knew the whole life and future of Judas. Yet, he gave Judas the opportunity to change his life. Do we write people off for a mistake or two? Do we give people an opportunity to change? We need to be more like Jesus and less like our churches. This ministry has given many inmates the opportunity to work for Jesus. So far, none have accepted the high calling. Some have even betrayed it, as Judas did. But the ministry is God's, and the work will go on as he directs it. The first miracles of Jesus were actually performed in the communities of the pagans. You might say he was testing the waters and laying down a foundation. The disciples were learning. It was better for them to make mistakes and learn among the pagans than in front of the church. Now that the disciples had time to watch, observe, and learn from Jesus, before the bigotry of the church became too strong, Jesus sent the disciples out on their first missionary campaign to church members only. He didn't want their message to be tainted or maligned by the church and having it go first to the Gentiles. He wanted the disciples to have success first among their own people. It would also be easier for the disciples since church training had prejudiced them so greatly against associating with pagans. As you go, make this announcement. The kingdom from heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, drive out demons. You have received without payment, so give without payment. Don't take any gold, silver, or copper in your money bags, or a traveling bag for the trip, or an extra shirt, or sandals, or a walking stick, because a worker deserves his food. Whatever town or village you enter, find out who is receptive in it, and stay there until you leave. As you enter the house, greet its occupants. If the household is receptive, let your blessing of peace come on it. But if it isn't receptive, let your blessing of peace return to you. If no one welcomes you or listens to your words, as you leave that house or town, shake its dust off your feet. I tell you with certainty, it will be more bearable for the region of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. As you go, make this announcement. The kingdom from heaven is near. Why was it near and not come? Because the kingdom from heaven is not a place or a thing, but a life. The kingdom from heaven is a kingdom of character. It is built upon the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are righteous and perfect. All who live in the kingdom of heaven live by them. It was this law that was being taught by Jesus. It was near, but the people had to accept it into their own hearts before it had come to them. The same with us. If you want to live in the kingdom of heaven, you must develop the law of that kingdom into your life and make it your own, perfectly. As Jesus fulfilled that law perfectly, so must we. The church needed to see a demonstration of what true religion was. The message, the kingdom from heaven is near, was to open up the minds of the church members that the kingdom from heaven had nothing to do with church going or rituals or services or other church activities. Had to do with healing a sin-sick world. Unlike the church that did everything for payment, the disciples were to give without payment. They were to love as they were loved, give as they had been given to. The disciples were to take nothing with them on this first missionary trip. Jesus didn't want anything of pride, ego, or selfishness to get in the way of the message of the kingdom from heaven. The people they were going to were poor and in need. Taking anything along would create prejudice and hinder the work. Therefore, they were to accept from the poor what was given. They were to live among the poor, thereby opening up the hearts of the poor. No griping, no complaining, no talking about what I have was allowed. They were to eat what was set before them without prejudice or opinion. The disciples were to be a blessing and show that the kingdom from heaven had nothing to do with riches, wealth, food, or what a man had. The only thing that counts in the eyes of God is the character, blessing and serving others. And how true for today. This little ministry that Jesus raised up has nothing. It sends out healing for all who accept it. Those who refuse to accept the message and truth God is giving through this ministry will be worse off than Sodom and Tyre. But those who accept the truth given through this ministry are blessed, healed, and experience the true happiness and joy found in the kingdom of heaven. So yes, through this ministry, the kingdom from heaven is being brought near to the world today. Who will accept it? See, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. So be as cunning as serpents and as innocent as doves. Watch out for people who will hand you over to the local councils and whip you in their synagogues. You will be brought before governors and kings because of me to testify to them and to the Gentiles. When they hand you over, don't worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say, because in that hour, what you are to say will be given to you. It won't be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Many letters that come to me are like whippings. People love their churches, but how they hate Jesus and his teachings. Oh, they name the name of Jesus and put on a big show of loving him. But when it comes to being obedient to his teachings, no thank you. I love my church. God called this ministry and has sent it out like a sheep among wolves. The Spirit of your Father dictated and directed the book, Change Your Life Biblically. In truth, your Father is speaking through this book to you. This ministry, the book, Change Your Life Biblically, has had to testify before a federal magistrate. The state of California was attempting to block the book from entering the California prison system. but God intervened. The ruling the federal magistrate made is equivalent to saying, this book, Change Your Life Biblically, must be allowed into all prisons and jails in the United States of America. As the devil works hard to destroy this ministry, God is doing all in his power to keep it working for him. Those who help us are helping Jesus. Those who hinder us are on the side of the enemy. The line is being drawn closer and closer as we get near and nearer the end of Earth's history. God bless you as you live in obedience to the teachings of Jesus. Thank you for joining me and Jesus Christ for another video Bible study.